Let's start this Tech Talk Live 172 for October 2025, which, we'll have a couple of interesting announcements, and we should have then Angel who will speak today. So, of course, Angel will talk about what happened at CommunityLIVE, announcements, and stuff like that. And then at the end, if we have time, we will have a Q&A as usual. I hope that maybe we have time so we can maybe discuss also with the community if we can. That said, we are proud with Angel to announce what we call the Alfresco add-ons catalog. So to provide a couple of context this summer during CommunityLIVE, a couple of people discuss with Angel and with other people at Hyland, like Hani. Hani Omar is in charge of some user groups at Hyland. And so the comeback of the where is the Alfresco marketplace question has been provided as a feedback after CommunityLIVE, and we started to think that it was possible to just, instead of name it marketplace like in the past, and to just create a kind of a community project where you would be able to just contribute your add-ons, modules, extension, what you do around Alfresco or with Alfresco, be it something that is open source or something you sell or whatever. And so it would provide for you a way to showcase, a way for the Alfresco community to find something that they might need. And also, this is a win-win because for Hyland, it's a way to learn also about what you are doing and maybe find new opportunities to work together. So Angel was kind enough to develop that from scratch on GitHub. It was moved last week onto Alfresco Labs repository, so you can find it, and I think a couple of people found it already because we have a contribution pending. And so your contribution are welcome. Please use the form. We created issue type to create a contribution with all the fields required, so we have consistency between all the content created. And of course, your contribution are welcome. So basically, you just require to have a GitHub account because it uses the issues and pull request mechanism to create stuff that we can manually review. And of course, your feedback, your improvement request, features are welcome, so you can create an issue using a blank template, or you can also provide a pull request. Everything is welcome here. The purpose really is to launch that as a kind of a soft launch in October, and then speak about it broadly later in November, and to see what happens in the coming months. Will you contribute? Is this something that was not very interesting because nobody used it? We really expect to provide something that will live and thrive and get a lot of contribution, so in a couple of months we can make it maybe even bigger. But for now, it's yours. It's a community project, so enjoy and use it, and we are eager to see your feedback on GitHub. By the way, open an issue, So next, as usual, we have a couple of news and projects and stuff. That there are some work being done around MCP. I bet that this one, MCP server with authentication, is made by Angel. So all those links, I will post them in the chat later, and of course you will have them in the presentation when I will post the blog article with the recording of today's meeting. You have 2 blog posts, so modernizing your Alfresco front-end development with an X generator. So typically it's on Connect, and how to report security issues for Alfresco, it's on Connect also. So this is something to read, and they are easy to find, by the way. You will have some third-party project. So on GitHub, Alfresco large content store backup and Alfresco GS web scripts, and also third-party blog posts, so one on farm tech and the two are on farm tech actually. So this is interesting, and so take your time, read that, it's always interesting. Again, I will share the links later in the chat while André is speaking. As usual, I remind you, don't be shy, we are always welcoming new speakers for the Tech Talk Live. If you want to showcase your work, speak about something, I mean, you're very, very welcome. And as you know, Angel is also trying to establish something in Spanish for the Spanish community. So not maybe every month, but maybe every quarter or something like that. So we are still looking for volunteers for that. And I mean, don't be shy. I mean, discuss with the guys you know who did it already. It's not that much work, and it provides good visibility in exchange of this time of preparation. So today I will give the voice to our dear Angel, and I mean he will speak and give the latest news of what happens in August and October in the community live meetings and all the things. So I stop to share, and then go.
So thanks, Antoine, and welcome to everyone. Yes, let me find the right screen. That is this one. So we are going to review today the Alfresco training. So this was the first year that Community Live include a training session the first day. Antoine, can you please mute yourself because I'm
Oh
hearing your
yes,
keyboard?
sorry.
So thanks. So this was the first year we were having these training sessions. We named that DEDCOM, even if you know that was not a real DEDCOM, but at least was something practical and was something that you can repeat at home. So the goal of this session is just to share all this training, so you can just get the source code and repeat that at home. I will be repeating one of the laboratories just for you to understand how that works and so on. But again, the goal is just for you to understand all the different material that is available for you from this training. So before moving on to the agenda, the slides will be available, and I'm going to use this kind of material for presenting, but at the end, you will find also a hangout with all the links, with the recordings of the sessions, with the links of the repositories and so on. So just don't worry about that, right? We will be providing this with the lives and the recording this week. So we are going to review all the highlights of the community live because there were two main announcements, one in Las Vegas and the other in Munich. All the topics that were covered during these training sessions. Then we are moving with a session recap just to understand all the different sessions and the topics that were addressed on each of them. And we are just following one of these laboratories, one hands-on, just for you to understand how to run that locally. So let's move on the highlights for Community Live 2025. So this year we had two sessions, the first one in Las Vegas in August, and the second one in Europe, in Munich, in October. And in the first one, there was this announcement of the Cloud Content Repository, that is the new open source offering from Hyland that will happen next year, 2026. And then in the Munich conference, in the European conference, we were announcing that the cloud innovation, the content innovation cloud, will be it's also available in Europe. So currently we have two different regions, one in the US and one in Europe. And we are also planning to get some certifications and some validations so you can use the European region with some additional security and privacy in relation to that. And also it was announced the next edition of CommunityLIVE that will happen in May, in the latest day of May, in Kissimmee, that is in Florida. So we still don't know the dates for the European edition, but there will be also an European edition. But the next one we have planned is the one in Kissimmee in Florida, May 30 to June 2nd, 2026. So this is what we announced. And now if we move to the detail of this cloud content repository of this new open source offering, there is still nothing written in stone, let's say. But the main idea, the idea behind the repository, that is not a new project, it's a project that already exists and that was developed by some engineers coming from Nuxeo and Alfresco. So it's a mix of expertise from the Alfresco and Nuxeo worlds. So the goals of this cloud content repository is to bring content from Alfresco or from Nuxeo or even from both, and then just to pre-process that. So there will be a first phase, a first service that will be extracting all the text from the documents, and that will include also some transformation. As you know, the best format we can use to ingest content is markdown. So what we need is something just to extract or to transform to markdown all the existing formats in your Alfresco Nuxeo repositories. So after that, then we need to calculate the chunks for this markdown and to calculate the embeddings so we can store that in the vector database. So this is the pre-process step. Then we have an enrichment of this information. So we are adding categorization, extraction, and so on. So additional data for the LLM to work with that in a better way. Then it's also providing index and retrieve. As you can imagine, this is for RAG purposes. So you want semantic search, and then we need to store all this embedding, all this vector information in a vector database, and we need to provide a searching service that can be, let's say, semantic or indexed, or just providing both, a combination of both. But we need this kind of services. And finally, we need to deliver some answers, and we need also just to provide some action. So in this deliver is part of the agent mess, let's say, this concept of agents. So these agents are not only able to provide answers to prompts, but they are also able to take actions. We are going to see that later, how an agent is taking action by using the MCP server. And all this cloud content repository will be using an LLM, a predictive and generative AI, that can be deployed on-premise or in the cloud. All the platform can be deployed on-premise. So if you want to deploy all this platform on-premise, that is an option. And this is what will be released next year. Again, main idea of what this cloud content repository is, but you need to wait until next year for the details. Okay, let's move to the topics that were covered during the training so we can understand each of them. So the first one is that the diagram for this Content Innovation Cloud, these are the services provided by Hyland for AI-ready repositories. So the diagram changed from past year to this year. So to the left, you can see a past year proposal that was based in content intelligence, process intelligence, and application intelligence by taking all the content from all the different repositories. So now to the right, we can see also the enterprise agent mess we are going to play later with this. So now we can create specialized agents for each vertical use case we can have. And we have also this enterprise context engine. That is a concept that it's able to create context with memory and to create context related to process and content and so on. So it's like the management of the context that every LLM and every conversation with an agent needs. So these are the new additions to the platform this year. So today we are going to see the enterprise agent mesh, and in the next weeks we were talking also about this enterprise context engine, so you can understand what is this new offering. If we move to the content intelligence, so we are going to see mainly today the content intelligence and process intelligence. If we move to the content intelligence, so this is the architecture. These are the internal components of the content intelligence part of the CIC. So you can see that Alfresco on the left is just sending documents, metadata, and so on to the CIC. But this ingestion is not just, let's say, a plain process. So we are using this knowledge enrichment service that is applying some curation and some contextualization to the documents. So this module is just converting, if that is required, to markdown the original format, and is extracting from the markdown, let's say, positions, image description, and so on, just to enrich the original information. And after all this process, is sending that to the content lake. So it's getting the vector representation from all this information and is storing this in the content lake. Even that you are using this by default, if you are using content intelligence, we are also providing a REST API for this service. So if you don't want to use all the content intelligence service, you can use only the knowledge enrichment via REST API to get rich content from your original content that can be in Alfresco or in any other repository. So once we have the content lake, then we are using the ML platform that includes LLM and other ML services related. And then on top of this, on top of the LLM and the content lake, we are building some agents. So these agents can be a RAG agent. RAG, it's just getting information from the content lake and providing this as context to the LLM when we are trying to reply some question. And then we have the knowledge discovery. That is the one that is providing visibility to this collection of agents and so on. So it's like the user layer, even if that is a REST API for these specific services. So this is content intelligence. So we have the content lake, we have the knowledge enrichment that is creating the context before storing that in the content lake. And then we have a number of agents and also some services to build and define these agents. You have the full reference of this API. So for the agent builder platform, for the knowledge discovery, and also for the knowledge enrichment with the data curation and context enrichment. So you are going to get this kind of documentation. So if you are curious and you want to understand all the different services that are provided by these platforms, then you can just follow these links and you will find all the REST API defined. If we move to the process intelligence, the process intelligence in Hyland is named Automate. So when you hear about Automate, this is the process intelligence piece of the CIC. So in Automate, what we have is access to the content intelligence. So we can use also services from content intelligence, so the agent builder, the agents, or the content lake, also the knowledge enrichment. We have the intelligent document processing. So this is the ingestion of documents. This is classification of document, extraction of metadata, detection of PII data, and so on. So this is the IDP services. And then we have access to this transformation service and repository, this cloud content that is mainly related to the, if you remember, to the knowledge enrichment module. Okay, so I'm just trying to follow all the same colors in both figures. And what is specifically related to automate, that is an evolution of Alfresco process application, is this studio that is the place where you design your workflow and your interaction with content intelligence, with intelligent document processing, and so on. So you are designing your process at this point, and then you have this deployment service. And once the application has been deployed, then the user can work with this workspace and just to start using the application. So from this automate, you can use also your information, your documents from Alfresco or Nuxio or whatever, right? Because we have access to this content intelligence module. So you can integrate also Alfresco into this automate service. So that is more or less the concepts you need to know previously, so you can understand the goal. So the goal for the training sessions this year was for you to experiment with all these new technologies. Not only the services provided by Hyland, but also building the services by yourself so you can understand the benefits and how to use these kind of services. So this is why in this session, so we had one in the US and another one in Europe related to Angular and the link between ADF and the CIC frameworks. So in these sessions, what you have is ADF connecting to Alfresco repository to use the knowledge discovery and the agent builder APIs. So from ADF, you can start a prompting session with an agent. So you can choose the agent and start a conversation with the agent. Then you can get the answer and the references if that is a RAG agent and so on. You can also connect with knowledge discovery in order to get all these definitions and so on. And also, you can connect with automate. In this case, these laboratories were explaining how to connect ADF or the Alfresco repository to start an instance of a process in automate. So you can send information to automate to start a process, okay? So it's fine if you want to start understanding these kind of connections and so on. You have all the source code for all these different operations. So you're working with ADF, likely you want to start with this type of sessions. Remember that you have two of them, right? One in the US, one in Europe, and that you have all the links at the end of the slides. So the second one, it's about AI-ready content in Alfresco Content Services. As we were mentioning before, this is known as knowledge enrichment. So there is a number of services associated to prepare your information for your repository, mainly curating the context and providing contextualization to the context. So this session, it's building from scratch all these services. The curation, for instance, is just transforming the document to markdown. And for contextualization is summarization, extracting metadata, extracting PII, and so on. So we were implementing these services from scratch by using Docker containers, using Spring AI, and then using a local LLM like Lava or Mistral by using Olama. Remember that you can use any other LLM server for this, but locally Olama is a good choice because it's very, very light and is performing well. And at the end of the session, we were comparing the how that written from scratch was working if we compare that to the content intelligence module, that is the knowledge enrichment, that was providing exactly the same operations. So after this session, you can understand how to build that from scratch and how to compare that with the content innovation cloud services. Okay, also interesting. This is a lot of work in this session, but you have all the detailed steps for each of the pieces we were recreating. And then you have also a session that is about content automation, how Alfresco automations and AI agents are interrelated. So for this, we have the modeling and phase and the administration phase. So we have some kind of tutorials that are helping you to design a process. So you need to model the application and in this part, modeling the services and so on and modeling the DB. So you have all the process design. You can, in these processes, you start with a document and then you extract some information from the document and then you use some NCP agents so you can perform some operations on the document and so on, right? So we are defining a number of steps that are interconnected with some external agents or with some other repositories, and then we are releasing it, and we need to understand how and where that is released. And once we have the process released, then we can start using it. So this is not only to learn on how to define the model itself. Remember BPMN, if you were using APA or APS, it's more or less the same stuff, but with new connectors to LLM agents. And then how to deploy this service so the users can get access to the application and can start just following the flow. Okay, so this was related to content automation, to process intelligence. And then this is the one that we are trying today. So this was only a session provided in Munich, in Europe. So if some of you didn't attend to Munich, then this is something new for you. But for the one that were attending Munich, this was the first tutorial we did on the day. I'm going to explain it again just to refresh the concepts. So this model context protocol, it's a standard that was created by Anthropic, the creators of Claude, in order to interact with platforms. So it's the way for an LLM to interact with a platform. So in this case, we are exposing Alfresco repository by using this model context protocol. And then the LLM can understand how to use an Alfresco repository by talking with this MCP server. So the MCP server, we are going to see that later, but in the end, it's a collection of tools, resources, prompts, and so on. And it, Andrea, I guess that you need to see this model context protocol on Hyland CIC. Is this right for you? I hope so. So I'm with the diagram, right? I'm going to move with the code in a few. Okay, not a problem. So the Alfresco NCP is this piece, right? So we are exposing the tools in this case to an agent that it's based in Llama Index. And this agent, it's able to speak, to start a conversation with the Alfresco NCP, so they can just apply some operations on the repository. We are going to see that later in detail, right? So the agent is using an LLM. In our case, we are going to use GPT-OSS, the smaller GPT-OSS version, by using Llama again. And then we are connecting this with ADF. So it's not always a good idea to expose prompting for the user, a prompting interface. So we have this box and just prompt whatever you want. So what is a better approach is just to expose a service. Let's say that we want to summarize a document. So instead of letting the user just to prompt, I want to summarize this document, just let's create a summary service. And in ADF, we can use a single button just to say summary, and that will happen. Even if that behind the scenes is a prompt, it's better to have that exposed as a service and avoid the user just gambling with prompting. Okay, so this is also the approach we are following today. And also on the Alfresco repository part, we are adding something new that is a rendition in Markdown. As you know, renditions are documents that are created for each document. So these are child nodes to the original node that may include the thumbnail, for instance. So this picture that is using share for this the first page of the document. If the format is not a PDF, then you will find a rendition of the PDF in this point. And now what we are adding is a markdown rendition. So each time you create a document, there will be a markdown rendition stored in the Alfresco repository. So when we want some information from the Alfresco repository, we will be able to get that in Markdown. And we don't need to start the transformation at this moment. So we can just retrieve the Markdown and start operating with this Markdown. Okay, this is more or less, but I guess that once we get with the details, you will understand this better. So let's go with the hands-on. So we are going to play two different exercises. So the first is adding a new MCP tool to the existing MCP server. And the second one is just creating an action in Alfresco Content application in the UI to connect with the agent. So we are adding a new tool for the Alfresco MCP. And then we are adding a button in ADF so we can invoke to the agent and so on. So this should be the agent mesh, let's say, right? But in our case, we are having only one agent, but you can have more than one. Okay, perfect. So let's move to the laboratory. So it's github.com/Borroy/Alfresco agents lab CLive. So you have all the details for the laboratory. We have the Alfresco deployment that includes also this rendition for Markdown. Then we have the Alfresco MCP server that contains all the different tools that we are providing for Alfresco. Then we have the agent mesh that in our case is based in the fast API and also in Llama index. And then we have the material for the lab. So you have also all the requirements that you need to start the laboratory and so on. But let's move to the first laboratory. Okay, so in the lab material, then I'm going to start with the first one. Okay, adding an MCP tool. So to add a new MCP tool, what I need is to expose this new Markdown rendition. So the Alfresco REST API is there because this is the generic renditions REST API. So we just need to invoke that with the Markdown rendition name. So we need to connect this operation to the MCP tool. That is pretty easy, let's say. So we just need to invoke to the REST API and to declare the tool in the MCP server. For this, we are going to use the Alfresco MCP server provided by Steve Reiner, my colleague Steve Reiner, and we are just getting this project and adding the operation. So you need for that Python node and npm, and let's start by cloning the repository. So let's move to the command line, and I'm going to follow the this tutorial, okay? So the first is to clone the repository, okay? And now we need to create a virtual environment, or you can use, you can use UV or something, some tool that is able to create a virtual environment for Python, because now it's what that works. We activate the virtual environment, and now we are installing all the dependencies. So with that, we are installing the dependencies in this new virtual environment. And once that is done, then I can start opening the project. So yes, let me find the project. Okay, it's this one. So we are starting the project, and the next thing is to create a new file that contains the REST API invocation. So for that, in core, you can see all other services like delete node and all document and so on. So I'm going to create a new one that is get markdown content. And you have all the code in the tutorial, right? So it's just to be fast with this. So I'm just connecting with this URL, and I'm just invoking to the URL and returning the response, right? So it's an API invocation, no more than that. So once we have this method that is able to retrieve a markdown from a node in Alfresco, then what I need to do is on the server to expose this new tool. So I'm importing the operation, the method I already added, and then I just need to create the new tool. So for instance, on the core tools, I'm just defining. So this is a new NCP tool. The name is get markdown content. This is the one that the LLM is going to see. And then a description also for the LLM. So fetch the markdown text content of an Alfresco node. And then I defining the parameter that is node ID, and that is a string. And then I'm just connecting with the REST API, okay? So for development, that is all. So I was declaring the REST API, and I was declaring the new NCP tool. And now what we can do is testing. So we can test that. So I have Alfresco already running, import is running, import localhost 8080. Then I'm using default credentials. And once I have this created, then I can start the this server, okay? So with that, your server will be there, will be running. So you can start testing with it, but for development stage, I guess that is better to use something like the Model Context Protocol Inspector. So this MCP inspector, it's something that may help you to test all the tools and that they are working as expected. So I'm installing the tool, and then you need to define the NCP JSON file with the type of server and so on. And once that is defined, then you can start the MCP inspector, okay? So once that is running, you will get the link. And let me find my way for it. So we have the link, and then we can connect with the server, and we can get a list of resources, prompts, and tools. So for instance, if we list the tools, we can see search content, advanced search, CMI search, and we have this new one, that is the get markdown content, that is the one we created. So if we want to test that, we have the parameter that in this case is the node ID. So I'm getting a node ID. Let me reauthorize. So for instance, this node ID. Okay, this one. And I can use that and just test the tool. So it was a failure because it was not the right. Sorry, I was not taking like the right number. Sorry for that. I was missing something likely. I don't know. Okay, in any case, let's do it like this. So I can find a node ID, like, let me find it in this way. So for instance, for this first one, so this is the node ID. So if I test that again, in this case, there is still an error. Okay. So there is no markdown created for this. Okay, we can debug that leaf. Okay, so it's okay. That's correct. So there is no markdown for this. Okay, we have a markdown for this one. So that was the demo codes, you know. So if everything is working as expected, then we can test the tool and get the result. Okay, so finally we are getting the result. So we are getting the markdown rendition from this PDF node. Okay. Okay, so now we extended the MCP server with a new operation that includes the extraction of this new rendition, that is the markdown rendition, that includes the content in markdown of the node. Okay, so that was the first exercise. So we have learned how to add a new NCP tool and how to test that locally. So once that we have that, the new NCP tool and so on, I'm switching to the next one. Okay, so I'm going to move, if I'm able to find it, to the next one. That is adding a button to the Alfresco Content App so we can connect with this LLM service. Okay, so the same stuff, right? I'm going just to follow the tutorial. So again, I have a new window already prepared. So the first thing we are going to use Node and npm. So I'm going to clone the repository. And now, okay, I'm going also to create the environment, because again, I'm going to use Alfresco that is deployed at this point. So I'm just creating the environment file, just declaring that I'm going to use Alfresco in 8080. And then I'm going to install dependencies. So the steps are more or less the same as we follow with Python, with the Python extension. And I'm going also to open the folder that should be at this point. So this is the standard Alfresco content application. And I'm just going to extend, I'm going to create an extension that adds a button, and this button is connecting with our agent mesh that is composed by one agent in our case. So while that is running, yes, let me do that in parallel. So I'm just creating the project, right? So I'm creating a new project that is X summary, so we can start working on that. So this is the new project, X summary. So this is my new project. So I'm going to start creating the service. So this one should be the summary effects. I'm copy pasting again from the guide, from the material. So in this one, I'm just reacting to an action of type summary, where I want to define later the summary and to attach this action to the UI. And this one is just taking the node ID and using this prompt, fetch markdown for the node. This action is associated to a node. We are going to see later that is associated to all the different menus for the for a node. So fetch the markdown for the node, summarize it in 50 words or less, and store the result in CM description property. So this is the only integration effort we need to do in order to get that done. This will invoke to the agent mesh, that is Llama index, and Llama index will speak with the MCP server, with the Alfresco MCP server, and all this work will be done. And then this is just for the for the messages. Okay, so I have this one, that is the service, the logic. Then I need to define a new folder for the assets. So this is where the definition for the UI goes. So summary plugin JSON. And in this case, I'm just defining the action summary, and the action summary is applied to the toolbar more, to the context button, and to the app viewer toolbar more. So I'm adding this action to 3 different points in the UI. And finally, all the boring stuff related to exposing the module. So we are going to declare the module. Okay. We are declaring and exposing the module. Then we can do also this, so it's more easy to use. So this should be the public API. Okay. And we are done. So the only thing we need is to add our extension to the ACA application. So once the project is done with the assets and the in the service, we need to go to the application and we need to find the extension module. Let me find this one. And in the extension module, we need to import our extension, and then we need to add the extension to this list. So with that, the extension ACA is knows that the extension is available. Then I need to add the assets so they can be copied to the static folder. So let me find the right file for this. Okay, so this is the project JSON, this one. So you have the assets. So at the end of the sets, we can add this one, that is the assets of the plugin we have. And as we are invoking to port 8000, we can add this configuration to the proxy, so we can avoid coarse problems and so on. Okay, so we just need to add this part. So each time we are invoking to agent, we have a proxy to invoke to localhost 8000, that is the URL of the agent. Okay, so once that we have defined the button and attached the button to ACA, we can start the application. And luckily, we are going to see the button available in the UI. Okay, if that is running, then we can go back to this and okay, is that running? It's still trying to run, but once that is running, we can see the changes on this. So I'm going to finish my demo with this, but the nice thing is that you can change the prompt and the integration will also change. So you don't need any knowledge on how that works. So you can just simply change the prompt and it's done. So we have a new summarize button at this point. We have also the button in this point. And we have also the one in this point, right? So remember that, so summary requested. So now that is connecting, it's connecting to the agent. So the agent with this prompt fetch markdown for the node, summarize, and store in CM description property. So now this agent will connect with the MCP server in order to get the markdown, and then the LLM itself will summarize the content, and finally it will invoke again the MCP server in order to store the result in the CM description property. So, and all this is happening only from this prompt. So this is all the information you need in order to provide this integration. So it's still working, is listing the tools and so on, and response success. So the node has been returned, summarized, and the property has been updated. So if we go back to this and we have the description, so now we have the summary in the description. Okay, so again, feel free to test any other prompt related to the document you can think of, but this is mainly the demo. So that was everything for today. Remember that I'm going to attach all these slides with all the different links you need. And now that I guess that is time for your questions. We have only 5 minutes, but it was a bit hard just to summarize all this in 40 minutes. So I don't know if there is some question. Alexander was highlighting my fail during the demo, but I was able to get the UID finally.
Yeah, and congrats, Angel, because I mean, you are one of the only guy I know who are doing a live demo like that without, I mean, it works. You did a small mistakes, but I mean, so far you were able do that in time, and it works. So well done. We don't have any question in the Q&A so far. It looks
So
like
let me do in the meantime this, right? So
yes.
this was the original prompt, and then I'm pasting a totally different prompt, right? So fetch the content, detect any PII, such as email or whatever, and store that in the CM description property. So I'm just saving, and just let's find another document. An invoice could be some, so it says summarize, but it's just doing the other operation, right?
Okay.
So we can leave that. But I guess that the real value of this integration is that just simply by changing the prompt, you get a different feature.
No,
And you yeah, so you can create new features to the user in a very simple way.
yeah. So we have a
Um,
question now from
yeah,
Jamil.
okay. Okay.
Hello, Angel. Can you please tell me if you could connect to the Python MCP server using Spring AI?
Yeah, of course. So the client for the MCP server can be created in many different technologies. So Spring AI is one of them, and we are using Python because many is the more mature framework today to create your both your MCP servers and your MCP clients. But you can use Golang, Java with Spring AI, TypeScript. So there are a lot of them.
Yeah, you will find.
Yes, let me very quick just to verify this. Okay, detected PI, the email, and the number of the invoice.
Nice.
Right? So new feature with one single prompt change.
That's nice. I mean, extraction of data like that is cool. I mean, without having to teach something to understand the template and stuff. Wonderful. We have another question from Steve. Use the workflow part of Llama Index for agent.
So this is a very the first thanks Steve for letting us use your Alfresco MCP server because I'm using that a lot. So thanks for the project. And you have the implementation at this point, right? So it's the fast API agent, and what we are not using that workflow feature of Llama, right? It's more simple than that. So we are just let me find it. So we are just creating this getting tools, and what is the implementation at this point? Okay, so we are just exposing it this, but with so it's the workflow API, let's say, but it's just exposing this MCP server, right? With a single MCP server.
Okay, nice. We don't have other question. Let me check in the chat. No, there's nothing more. Don't be shy, guy. We still have 1 or 2 minutes. We are close to 5 p.m., but still there's time to answer another question. Yes. How would this be done with CCR?
I still don't know, to be honest. But there will be an integration layer to define agents.
Okay.
Okay. So CCR, the Cloud Content Repository that will be released next year, it's also by now using Llama Index. Okay. So the way of using it will be more or less the same we are seeing with this integration.
Nice. And Jamil has another question. Can we use Keycloak Identity Service as authentication for the MCP server, not basic authentication?
So not yet, but so by now I'm working on supporting the ticket authentication, that is basic authentication, but relying on a ticket number for a session. And then we are planning to provide the MCP server with OAuth authentication.
Okay.
So you can identify each
should
part
work
of
with a lot of protocols. That's great. Okay, so as OAuth 2 in MCP, Steve is just adding.
We'll be talking about that, right? Because it's like our next step is just to provide authentication with the MCP server.
This will be the topic of an upcoming Tech Talk Live when it will be ready, I guess. So it's 5 p.m. There's no more question. There's something in the chat. Great presentation, thank you. Well, thank you to you, Suresh, and thank you, as usual, to everybody who took the time to attend and watch today. It was quite a technical one. It's been some time now that we didn't have some live stuff like that. So thank you again, Andrel, for this nice preparation. I know it takes time to test and run and stuff. So great. And of course, I guess all your work is in some GitHub repository and stuff. So already, so it's easy to find on Angel's GitHub, by the way. So see you in 1 month. It should be mid-November as usual. I don't know yet what we will have as a speaker. I'm still working on that now, but I mean, it should be interesting as usual. So see you in 1 month, and until that, please go to this Alfresco add-ons catalog and add your work. I mean, add your add-ons and integrations and stuff, so we can review that and add that to the catalog. So I mean, that would be wonderful. We are working on that with Angel. See you later.
Perfect. All right. Thanks to everyone.